I cannot believe this, but we are less than 2 weeks away from the first official test, they say, of the 2024 primary season, the Iowa caucuses. Well, this could be the first step to kind of narrowing down the GOP field. The Real Clear Politics average shows Trump leading at 51% in Iowa. DeSantis trails at nearly 19%. Haley in a distant third. She's at 16%. And joining me now is Florida Governor and 2024 candidate Ron DeSantis, who's been all over Iowa. Governor, I know you've been you're hovering around that percent in Iowa now for some time, and Trump continues to dominate. Do you think Iowa, for you, is it your deciding factor?
No, this is a race to get the majority of the delegates. We've done Iowa the way people who have done well in Iowa have done, which is be on the ground, create the organization. The polling has never predicted how the results come out because it's a caucus and it's just a different beast. And so we're doing what it takes to win. I've been to all 99 counties, and we're going to be able to do a lot more. But it's an important part of the process that you actually come and take questions from people, answer their questions, even participate in debates. And so we're going to be participating in a debate on CNN. The former president has declined that, but Governor Haley is going to do it. So it's going to be a one-on-one debate between me and Nikki Haley. So I'm looking forward to doing that, and that'll just help the voters be able to make their best decision going forward.
Governor, I have a question, and who knows how any of us would proceed if the facts were the same. But if you were leading by that same amount, would you, jump over people to do debates with people who are kind of trailing by a lot? I mean, I think it's actually a kind of an interesting question.
Yes, I would debate because that's what you do. This is about the people. It's not about you. And look, he's got a situation where he gets a lot of air cover from cable networks, including this one. I get that. And so from a strategic perspective, but the question is that the right thing to do? No, the right thing to go is to stand and talk about your record. Why shouldn't he have to answer questions? I mean, he's running on things like deporting illegals and building a wall, but he did that in 2016 and didn't get it done. So I think he owes answers to those questions. He has not been willing to do that. Obviously, if you go by polling, it hasn't hurt. But I think now that we're in the new year, I think voters do expect you to answer those questions. I think Iowans expect you to show up and debate. I think it's going to be the same when we go into New Hampshire. I've already committed to a couple of those debates. And so we'll see what happens. But I can tell you on the ground here, we like the momentum that we have, and we're looking forward to it.
Governor, I want to get your response to something that Vivek Ramaswamy, who's trailing by quite a bit, said about Trump's removal from the primary ballot in Maine and, of course, in Colorado. Watch.
If every Republican removes themselves, that nullifies Maine and it nullifies Colorado if they remove a candidate unconstitutionally from that ballot. Now, I believe in standing on principle over politics. If they remove Trump's name, my name's off, too. And I call on Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley and Chris Christie to do the same thing. Their words are cheap. Action speaks louder than words. Now, their unwillingness to do that, I think, reveals that they're actually complicit, in part, in what's happening, even if indirectly.
Your reaction to those comments, Governor? Complicit in the lawfare against Donald Trump.
Just absurd. I mean, I have a responsibility to accumulate delegates. I'm not going to unilaterally seat any. I'm going to win as many as I can. And I've been very clear about both of those decisions in those states. It's not consistent with the Constitution. I do expect them to get reversed. I've raised the question about Biden. I mean, if he has greenlit 8 million illegals invading this country, is he eligible to be on? So we can play this game all along. I think it's not going to end up well for our country. But I do know this, that if any of the other ones of us had gotten kicked off the ballot, Trump would be spiking the football. Let's just be clear. That is just the fact of the matter.
That's probably accurate. I think that's a fair point. All right, there is a new ad that we're not going to play because it's so stupid, but I have to have you respond to it. Nikki Haley's super PAC has an ad out that claims that you're phony, too lame to lead, and too weak to win, and that you're pro-China. So you're pro-China and all those other things, given kind of what we know about Nikki Haley's position on globalization and so forth, which is a position of a lot of mainstream kind of establishment Republicans.
Laura, I banned China from buying land in the state of Florida. I kicked China out of our universities, these Confucius institutes, and we've cracked down on them taking our trade secrets. No governor in the country has done more to stand up to the Chinese Communist Party. Nikki Haley, on the other hand, when she was governor, she was the #1 governor in America of bringing the Chinese Communist Party into her state. They gave land near a military base for a Chinese company. She went to a Chinese company right in front of the Chinese flag and said that she works for them. And of course, she said China is a friend. Now she's trying to act tough because she knows how toxic those positions are with Republican primary voters. But here's the thing. Her donors, these liberal donors in California and on Wall Street, they make money in China. She would not stand up to China. And so I think the Haley as governor, that would be the Haley you would get. So it's a clear contrast. She's grasping at straws to try to do the nonsense. And I think what they're trying to hit me on is something that happened in Florida before I was even governor. So you know, if they're hitting you for things that your predecessor did, I must have done a pretty doggone good job.
Well, it's clear that the plutocracy wants Biden versus Haley. There's no doubt about that. Governor, we'll see you in the Iowa caucuses. I can't wait to be there. Thanks so much.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.